Tanzen Gott gefickt hast, dann hast du noch nie getanzt.
This is the way to fuck God. It's time to wake up, come on. This is the way to fuck God. This is a wake up call. It's time to wake up, come on.
Wenn du nie beim Tanzen Gott gefickt hast, dann hast du noch nie getanzt.
This is the way to fuck God. It's time to wake up, come on. This is the way to fuck God. This is a wake up call. This is the way to fuck God. It's time to wake up, come on.
Wenn du nie beim Tanzen Gott gefickt hast, dann hast du noch nie getanzt.
This is the way to fuck God. It's time to wake up, come on. This is the way to fuck God. This is a wake up call. This is the way to fuck God. It's time to wake up, come on.
Wenn du nie beim Tanzen Gott gefickt hast, dann hast du noch nie getanzt. Dann hast du noch nie getanzt.
Laughing, crying, it's the way the story goes. Laughing, crying, it's the way the story goes. Laughing, smiling, it's the way the story goes. Laughing, smiling, the way
This is the way to fuck God. It's time to wake up, come on. This is the way to fuck God. This is a wake up call. This is the way to fuck God. This is the way to fuck God. It's time to wake up, come on.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to a Friday Nothing Cast. And for my religious listeners out there, I do really feel the necessity to just say this. That song actually is not anti-Christian or anti-religious. It's literally saying that if you have not had, basically, if you haven't fucked with God while you're on the dance floor, then you've never danced before. That is exactly what the song's about. So anyway, on with the show. Well, I should be writing right now, either See Jin Jin or Boobs of Steel. Man, the Boobs of Steel chapter is, it's killing me, man. I want so badly just to sit down, get this fucker done, because I've got like 2 pages. 2 fucking pages, and I can upload the file, and you guys can actually start reading it in the preview. And you know what? Actually, if I get these 2 pages done soon enough, I may include one more chapter. It all depends. It all depends. If I can get it done before the 6th of July, I will put one more bonus chapter in. But yeah, it's just Wednesday, I knocked out a ton of this chapter, got it done. And usually when I write something, by the end of the day, I'm like, this is total shit. This sucks. Fuck this. This is garbage. And I bring my editor in, the lovely Kat, and I sit her down and we go over it together. And she basically looks at me and says, it's flawless. Okay, I did my job right. Faderhead is a pretty cool band. How'd I learn about them? I don't remember. I think that's back when the YouTube algorithm was a little better and it would suggest music to you actually would like. Yeah, amazing. That used to actually be a thing. And it it suggested to me a lot of Faderhead's early material. His later stuff, he took himself more seriously, but his early material is a bit more extreme and intentionally kind of over the top humorous. And it had suggested to me a song called Swedish Models and Cocaine. And the entire song was him going on about how he had a horrible, shitty flight from one tour date to another. And all he wanted at the end of the day was Swedish Models and Cocaine. I was like, okay. And it was hilarious. Play another song called Coke for My Ass. Yeah, he only actually has 2 songs about Coke, and it was about snorting cocaine through your butthole, and it was hilarious. So I'm like, okay, this is working for me. Really aggressive industrial music with over-the-top lyrics. Yeah, okay. Then I heard his TV, is it TDVZ, I think it is, which is like his club track. And it was really good. It was a real winner. And I was like, okay, fuck it. I'm going through his entire collection on Bandcamp and buying everything I like. And yeah, it's one of those times when you want to sit down and listen to industrial music that isn't grim or depressing. It's just really aggressive. So anyway, yeah. Asimov approves of taking cocaine through your butthole. I want to know what movie that the Faderhead sampled for that song, because it was clear that whatever movie he sampled in the song is why he wrote it. Because there's all these samples in the song from some film where this guy's talking about how he can snort cocaine through his butthole, and it's, I don't know. There used to be a thing in industrial. I guess it's still kind of around, but it's not like it used to be. That industrial took itself so damn seriously in the 80s and 90s that a lot of the industrial bands purposely had a secondary band that was just meant to be silly. I mean, the most famous one was Ministry had the Revolting Cocks, and they are by far the most prolific of them as well. And again, the Revolting Cocks were, a double joke. They were supposed to be the revolutionary chickens, but also really, really ugly penises. And the joke was is they were a bunch of hillbillies doing rap industrial music originally, with the song Beers, Steers, and Queers. Then more recently, there was a band called Conform Co. that was kind of doing that. There's, Cocksure is another band where it's not serious. It's purposefully over the top, silly, weird. And Faderhead definitely crosses into that territory. No, not wholesome. No, not in the least. Absolutely not wholesome. But adults can like humor too, right? You can have adult humor in your music. Am I outlining part 2 of Boobs of Steel? The entire book's outlined. In fact, the entire book, most of the chapters are written and arranged There's just a few blocks of it that need finishing. Okay, you want me to go over it? I mean, I posted Wonder Woman because I've spent all week writing about Wonder Woman. But anyway, what I was going to say, as far as Boobs of Steel goes, I had one hell of a good day on Wednesday. Worked all day. Started by writing some Siege Engine in the morning. Spent the entire day then, right after that, writing Boobs of Steel. Got the last chapter almost done. And then yesterday, I got some done, but I was so fucking burnt out. You get that sometimes. You get that after you get that really awesome day. You want to sit down the next day and do it again, and you're like, no, my head's fried. So I worked a little bit, got some shit done, then played Wasteland 3 for a bit to clear my mind. I'm going to work today after I get off the stream, but I woke up at noon, which should give you a hint of how much I blew my brain out. But no, it's just I need to wake up. I figured I'd jump on, talk to you guys, because I need to wake the hell up first before I really dive into this. But if you want kind of me to talk about the outline for Boobs of Steel again, I will give you a rundown of what is done. As I said, you're going to be getting the first 5 chapters and maybe 6 chapters. I'm sorry. You're going to get the first 6 chapters with maybe a 7th, depending on how quickly I get the current chapter done. Because I really want to cover the Golden Amazon. I really want to include that as just kind of a bonus. But then after the first one, I've got the next, okay, let's see. I've got up to chapter 18 pretty much written. Divining Female Strength. I think it needs one more pass before that chapter's ready to go. I want to do an entire chapter on the Jungle Goddess archetype. That one is, I would say, 70% done. I've got a chapter called Why Boobs of Steel Matter, and that chapter is done. Maybe I should include this chapter in the book. I don't know. I want to do an entire chapter on Valkyries, the Valkyrie archetype and the Bad Girl archetype, then another chapter on tomboys, and possibly, if I can, the Lovely Warrior from anime. Because these are all archetypes that were an outgrowth of the Amazon. And then I get into Heroine's Journey. And the Heroine's Journey, I basically talk about how if you take away these female archetypes that have boobs of steel, you're making it that much harder to tell the heroine's journey or to tell a hero's journey with a woman. Because the hero's journey and the heroine's journey are specifically different. Kat would say that the heroine's journey would be exemplified by Jane Austen novels. Jordan Peterson says that it's exemplified by Beauty and the Beast. She goes out into the world, finds a beast of a man, and tames him into a civilized human being and a father. But you can have a woman go on the hero's journey, but the more mannish you make her, the less it kind of diminishes it. She stops being a woman. It's a skin suit. So if you start taking away Amazons and jungle goddesses and tomboys, that hero's journey with a woman starts to mean less and less. So yeah, as you can tell, the ones that I need to do are the ones on the archetypes. Jungle Goddess, Valkyrie, Bad Girl, Tomboy, and Lovely Warrior all are in various states of needing to be written. So that's probably going to be the next book, or maybe I won't. Maybe I'll make that an even later book. Because once I get into the politics, shit, Power Girl, the entire chapter on Power Girl and the whole feminist thing against her, done. I've got a chapter called Less Isn't More, and it's about all the censorship of the Busty Warriors and all the various types of... it was basically, Anita Sarkeesian and all the various attacks on busty comic book characters and video games and movies. It's specifically about how, you know, they'll just keep taking and taking until they all look like little boys. That chapter is done. Give them an inch, they'll take several cup sizes. That chapter is specifically about what's been done to video games because of Sarkeesian and her hate mob. That chapter is done. And, oh, wait a minute, take that back. Sorry, I take that back. That chapter is not done. It's about 50% done. And that one, I get into what's been done to Lara Croft specifically as a case study. The prior one, Less Isn't More, I get into specifically Tifa Lockhart and the characters in Mortal Kombat. Then the chapter Princess of Power, where I talk about the old She-Ra and the new She-Ra. That chapter's done. Fear of the Feminine, getting into the fact that all of these attacks on women and the feminine archetypes is the trans agenda, and that can be traced to feminism, and feminism can be traced to communism. Chapter is done. Then I get into the female man versus the impossible woman, and that won't make any sense until you read some of this stuff. But what I'm referring to is The Female Man was a book written by Joanna Russ, who was a raging feminist and a prototype for today's woke culture warriors. I mean, she was woke before it was woke in 1975. And she wrote a book where women eventually get rid of men and take over by becoming essentially androgynous, man-like, chubby lesbians and live in a communal, how would I put this? A communal sort of socialist utopia. It's moronic. And The Female Man is supposedly the height of feminist science fiction, and to this day is held in high esteem. And then I compare it to The Impossible Woman, which is when people like Judith Butler, who is thoroughly responsible for convincing feminists that women aren't born, they're made, and that gender is a social construct. I get into how Judith Butler was going on about, oh, well, you know, these archetypes are impossible women we could never live up to. This is just more brainwashing. And I get into bullshit. The impossible woman isn't impossible, and she serves a purpose in fiction, just like Hercules serves a purpose in fiction. I do a chapter that's, again, done, called The Red Menace, and I get into, again, it all goes back to the 1960s and communism. And I trace from the 60s, I do Robert Heinlein as a case study, and I show that through Asimov and then into the next generation of hippie new wave writers, they really went out of their way to put as much communism as possible into their work. And that's part of why we got here and why the publishing industry is a mess. And you get to learn a lot about why Asimov really should just be taken out back and beaten with sticks. The guy was... The fucker's responsible for... He is the first person to ever try and politicize a sci-fi convention and try and make it all about his political views in communism. Him and Wolheim. It's like, fuck you guys. The difference is he tried to do it in the 50s when people were still patriotic, and they said, take that shit outside and don't come back. And then I have Afterward, the final chapter in all of this. And you know what? I can share some of that with you. It's not done, but I can read a bit of it because I think it seals it with a bow. How about that? Looking at some of the other stuff. I mean, there's a few other things I could cover. but I've kind of merged them into the existing chapters. Mainly, there's a chapter I wrote on the whole unrealistic expectations bullshit. And I suppose I could still include that, but I think I'm going to put that into, put some of the material in other chapters. And the claim of not real women. God, I hate that. Okay. These archetypes are impossible to live up to. The archetype. She could sew, cook, and clean up the house. Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Beauvoir was the first one to say that, and then Butler made it even more popular. It was Beauvoir was the first one, and she did it in, I think, the very late 40s or the early 50s. Sorry, thanks for correcting me, Garrett. You would be interested. Would you be interested in doing a live stream introspective about new wave writers? Sure. If he's feeling better, John hasn't been feeling too good. He's really good on that too. But my whole chapter about the Red Menace, you learn a lot. There is a big breakdown of the new wave writers and how most of them were communists, how most of them were purposely tearing down the old stuff just to do it because they were dicks. And that really, it's interesting who didn't and who wasn't a part of that. I love the fact that they keep trying to claim Philip K. Dick as one of their own. And while Philip K. Dick also, he had, liberal views, I wouldn't say they were leftist, definitely liberal views. He was also very, very Christian, believe it or not. I don't know if people know that. Philip K. Dick, despite his schizophrenia, was still a loyal patriot to the United States. He believed in the founding fathers and was trying to turn in the other new wave writers who were taking money from the Soviets. He was reporting on them. And the FBI was like, this guy's crazy. He's a sci-fi writer who does LSD. And they didn't listen. They didn't fucking listen. Okay, wait a minute. Expect a woman to be of normal weight is a hate crime too. Yeah, tell me about it. The Writer Dojo podcast? Okay, let me write that down. Okay, I'm going to go over your comments first, see if you had any comments about what I just told you about. Yeah, a lot of these chapters that I've mentioned are posted on the Discord. Yes, bonus Golden Amazon featurette. I really want to include that just because she was influential at the time. She's forgotten now, but it's so insane. And just the fact that it was very, very popular when it was coming out in Canada. So if the female journey is supposed to be about going out and taming a guy or whatever, where do you put Atalantia from Myth? Girl left to the wild. Oh, she's a warrior hunter. She's a wild woman. She's a wild woman and a precursor to the jungle goddess. It's an older archetype. We don't see it as much, but that even predates the Amazon, technically. Technically, Amazons and wild women were kind of considered similar or the same thing for a while. But yeah, she is the girl. She's the girl raised by, I think it was bears. She was raised by bears, but it's the child raised by wolves. She's the ultimate tomboy. I do mention her in this first book. Not enough. I'd like to do more on her. I'm going to get into Atalantia a bit in the chapter about jungle goddesses and then the one about tomboys. because yeah, she is both a wild woman and a tomboy through and through. I think essentially she was the dream girl we all want, except for the no sex part. But could you blame her? But there is a moral to the story about winning Atalantia's heart, and that is the fact that she could hunt with the men, that she was a wild woman, she was strong, and she was untamable, and no man could win her over with his. No one could. All the strongest and bravest and most good-looking men couldn't win her over. What's she won over by? Charm and wit and intelligence. The man that gets her heart gets it by intelligence. He's clever and he charms her. And that's symbolized by rolling out the apple. But anyway, Writer Dojo, Larry Correa. I have his email. We can directly email him. I'll send you his email, Kat. Speaking of Atalantias, I got my own. I know that she wants more muscle on her, but we can only do so much when we have a full-time job and are an editor, right, Kat? You're still hot. You've still got the hypnotic boobs and the hourglass. You've kept your hourglass waist. Am I making you blush? You can put yes or no in the comments. I'm waiting. Oh, she says no. She says I'm not making her blush talking about the fact that she's kept her hourglass and it's hot. Atalantia's Golden Apple sounds like a restaurant chain. She says I'm sweet, but she's not blushing. I'll have to try harder. All right. You guys want to hear the conclusion here? The afterword, which isn't done, but it's almost done. Afterword. Fairy tales do not give the child his first idea of a bogey. What fairy tales give the child is his first clear idea of the possible defeat of bogey. A baby has to know the dragon intimately the baby has known the dragon intimately ever since he's had an imagination. What fairy tales provide is for him a Saint George to kill that dragon. G.K. Chesterton. And he's again why myth is important. Throughout this book, I've argued that classic archetypes play a vital role in who we are as people. They are more than just vital storytelling devices. They are a set of ideas, concepts, and narratives which nourish and sustain the culture's identity. So then, how is it that I can claim that entertainment cannot be blamed for school shootings, teen suicides, and body dysmorphia? Either stories shape us as people, or they don't, right? Allow me to be perfectly clear. Media doesn't make anyone do anything. It reaffirms and communicates the norms and values of a culture. Reading Das Kapital won't make you into a Marxist any more than Harry Potter will turn you into a wizard. Both can only introduce the idea to you. On the other hand, if an entire entertainment establishment starts promoting communism as an utterly splendid idea, it could convey a message of Marxism being the accepted norm. So yes, the media we consume does shape us, but it doesn't go out and force us to harm other people or ourselves per se. As kids, the heroes I grew up with were Luke Skywalker, Captain Kirk, Thomas Magnum, and Roy Folker. Later, it was Batman from the animated series. Five very different men with very different stories, but what they all shared was a moral code, one of honor, duty, self-sacrifice, and the sanctity of life. These were men who had made hard choices. Most of them had taken lives. Typo. Most of them had taken lives, but never took death lightly. And most importantly, every one of them believed in forgiveness and redemption. For a neglected 80s child whose mom was for a neglected 80s child who was mom's punching bag every time dad cheated on her. Having a healthy vision of masculinity coming through the TV on a daily basis saved me. Every day after school, I would lock myself in a tiny room and escape the madness outside by disappearing into another episode of Magnum solving a case, Kirk outsmarting the Klingons, or Roy mentoring young Rick Hunter on his journey to becoming a Valkyrie pilot. My wife and I often joke Gen X learned its morality from Batman, a statement that's not entirely untrue. Bruce Timm's animated version of The Dark Knight certainly gave me more moral guidance. Missing a word. Certainly gave me more moral guidance than my parents or teachers ever did. Yet, be it the streets of Gotham, the bridge of the Enterprise, or the dark underbelly of Hawaii's paradise or the Hawaiian paradise, at their core, these stories were morality tales. Luke's quest to save his father, Batman's belief that even the worst can be redeemed, Kirk proving time and again humanity can rise above its brutal past, and Magnum just showing that he was a decent guy capable when was it just showing what a decent guy and Magnum just showing what a decent guy is capable of when the need arises. Did these stories make me a good person? No. They didn't make me do anything. They just merely reaffirmed what I already assumed to be right, just like the X-Files didn't make me marry an intelligent, no-nonsense redhead. It just showed me the kind of woman I wanted. Of course, maybe Lieutenant Maggie Poole from Magnum PI had some influence too. Looking back upon these shows that I grew up with, I shudder to think of how I may have turned out if I had been a child today. The media landscape of the 21st century is a vastly different place. Luke has been made into a bitter old hermit who tries to murder his nephew. Kirk has been reimagined as a grown man who acts like a petulant boy. Batman shoots people. And Thomas Magnum? Fortunately, nobody watched that remake, so let's not speak of that abomination any further. The problem is, we don't have heroes anymore, just men wielding power, and for girls, the offerings are even more bleak. The best it seems Hollywood can do is march out an endless parade of masculinized sociopaths who are more morally bankrupt than the villains. It says a lot about a generation when Pennywise, the demonic child-murdering clown from Stephen King's It, is recognized as a queer icon among millennials. Now consider many of the recent Disney films that are retelling Now consider the minute. Oh, that's let me fix that. That is another mistake. Like I said, this isn't done. Now consider how many recent Disney films are retellings of their classic movies. In all of them, these fantasy worlds have turned upside down. Villains become heroes, heroes become rapists, beautiful becomes ugly, ugliness becomes a virtue. The very concept of good and evil is becoming twisted and inverted. It makes me ill to think what kind of it makes me ill to think what kind of message a parent sends to their child when sitting them down and showing them the film where a mass puppy killer is painted as heroic. A couple of years ago, such a film would have been unthinkable. Today's kids can watch it on Disney Plus under the title Cruella. So that's the conclusion. It is not done. It's still rough, and I haven't finished it. So yeah, Batman now lets people loot because of really? Seriously? You know what? Maybe I should include Optimus Prime because a lot of them did get their morality from Optimus Prime. That is true. Hence, I support the moral woman's worst enemy is indeed another woman. You mean the golden apples given to him by Aphrodite? I think it was Aphrodite, and told him to roll the distraction. She got beat by another woman after answering the pleas of a guy who hated to lose. Yeah, no, it was cleverness and charm. That was basically the point. And keep in mind, there are multiple tellings of the story. Going through your comments. and has the same thoughts as Tom King wrote that shit, really? Fuck Tom King. Seriously, fuck that piece of shit. Tom King, I am convinced, because of what I've researched into him, is nothing more than a compulsive liar, rich kid who has bought his way into where he is at DC. Seriously. For the amount of money he's bringing in, there's no way he's getting it from working at DC. I think he's paying them, and they're letting him. Yeah, Tom King likes it when women step on him. Yeah, I also think he's a closet masturbator. Okay. The feminist hero makes a good antagonist. Yeah, but she's not a hero. She's a villain. Tom King is a CIA plant, probably. I don't buy that, though. I really don't. That whole thing that he was working for the CIA, because his stories are utter bullshit. The shit he tells makes no sense. His stories are inconsistent. They never line up. And also, because Kat's dad was essentially, a special... he basically was he was an inventor for various government agencies, including the CIA, and hearing the security measures and how they operated. No, Tom King is full of shit. He's a liar, and his lies don't hold up. They hold up just as poorly as his stories hold up. I don't think King wrote that specific thing, but I'm sure he would if he could. Boobs of Steel is something the Writers Dojo audience would find interesting. They're all up and coming writers and understand how entertainment got. Okay, absolutely. I've been wanting to basically meet him anyway. Plus, he likes guns. Gotta respect that. Give me a second. This is great. Right now, for whatever reason, there's a high pollution content in the air, but it's not like environmental, I don't know, toxins or any shit like that. The air is considered highly polluted because there's so much dust and shit because of the winds. Yeah, didn't you want to hear that? Yeah, me blowing my nose. In fact, I'd be outside right now, but there's so much crap in the way. Air it's the desert. It's the desert and the wind's blowing. Sneak a listen while I'm on hold trying to find a semi-truck compressor. How you doing, Trenton? We need to hang out. We need to talk. It's been too long, man. I know that you were going to stop by, God, was it a month or so ago? But I was feeling like utter shit at the time. Chemtrails, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's chemtrails. No, these are dust storms. Trust me. They're absolutely dust storms. If chemtrails looked like this, shit. We get dust storms here sometimes where it gets dark. We haven't had many, but we've had a few. Lots of former data entry clerks swaggering about pretending they were our man Flint during the Bush and Obama era. Two factors. Authentication clearance doesn't mean that you were a super spy, Tom. Yeah, I think he's a bullshit artist. I really do. Because, one, his stories aren't consistent. Absolutely inconsistent. They always change. And his job, what he does, seems very inconsistent depending on his stories. Second, like I said, Kat's father had clearance with various agencies. And people with clearance don't talk that way. They just don't. I weeded this morning. I'm sure the plants are still angry. Yeah, that's probably true, Kat. The CIA has people in entertainment since the 40s, even though showing propaganda to Americans was illegal until Obama repealed it. Yeah, but the thing was, in the 40s and 50s, that propaganda was to make sure that you remained patriotic and believed in America. And interestingly enough, they were also anti-racism. They really, back then, there was this attempt to try and get everyone in the country to see us as a people, as being uniquely American, that we all came from different places, but we were uniquely American. Now it's discord and bullshit. But as far as, oh God, what was that? Was that Project Monarch, I think, was the CIA project to plant people in the media? Usually, let me try that again. Let me say, is it Project Monarch? Oh, well, it doesn't come up anymore when you do a search. Well, that maybe it is Project Monarch then. But yeah, there has always been a project within the CIA to put people in positions in the media. And a lot of them, their job isn't very in your face. It's not what you'd think. Yeah, I mean, you get the people who write editorials to push their views that the CIA prefers. But a lot of what those guys would do is they would be like copy editors, and not even journalists, but copy editors or content editors at various newspapers. And when a story would come through, they would nix all the information they felt the public shouldn't know about. So it was very sneaky and very quiet, and not something that you would pick up on. It wasn't stuff like, and here's an article about why you should do this. It was more like, okay, we don't want people thinking about this subject. Remove this from the article. Or they wouldn't even tell that. They just remove it and print it. They try to make it unnoticeable as possible. In Hollywood, the CIA involvement in propaganda was very interesting. The ones that I know about, the one that's most famous is The Day the Earth Stood Still. And that was part of that. I don't know if it was part of Project Monarch, but it was part of the propaganda in movies for Americans. And in that one, it was very interesting. It was right before the Korean War, and it was made by conservatives, but it was actually a message of, we need to find peace. And yes, there was an undertone of Christianity. Now, to the modern day audience, it looks very fascistic. I mean, you get this alien that comes down and says, we're sick of you all fighting. I'm going to leave this killer robot here, and if you take it too far, he's going to kill all of you. But that isn't the lens it was. You've got to realize what it was a religious metaphor. Klaatu was Christ, and Gort was the angry god. And basically, it was essentially, Klaatu says, I'm here on a message of peace. You guys got to sort this out. We've got to stop the wars. And if you don't, angry God here is going to smite you. You see what I mean? Okay, going through here. Mockingbird. Thank you. It wasn't Monarch. It was Mockingbird. Thank you very much. Got it close, but okay. Okay, forget which one Monarch was then. Yeah, I did a lot of research into Mockingbird when I was doing World War Kaiju. It's amazing how much of in World War Kaiju is based on shit that was real. It is. A lot of that stuff was strangely, it's not as alternate sci-fi history as you'd think. Hey, Ishii, the CIA invested in LSD in the US public. The hippie generation in the 60s, the CIA is getting royalties on that drug. That does not shock me in the least. Yeah, MK Ultra is pretty brutal, and we will never know the full extent of MK Ultra. I mean, they destroyed all of the files on MK Ultra, so they thought, until some of them turned up, and it was explosive at the time. And the interesting thing is that the boomers who are always going on about hating the government, they get absolute proof positive that there's a horrible conspiracy has been committed by the government. And yet to this day, if you mention other projects like that, they're, oh, that's just a conspiracy theory. It's like, are you shitting me? Are you fucking shitting me? You got proof positive that your generation was experimented on by the CIA with LSD to try and make mind control drugs, and yet you can't buy things like, oh, well, they're using social media to manipulate us. That's a conspiracy theory. I don't know. But then, this is the same generation of boomers that it did not matter how many times something extraordinary happened in the sky, they'd still go home and say, well, UFOs are only believed by crazy people. You're fuck. I remember my father got in an argument with me about UFOs, and I said, well, no, there are incidents that are absolutely 100% real and undeniable. He goes, like what? Like what? That's just crazy. Only hillbillies see that. And I said, the Phoenix Lights. And he goes, oh, what? And I show him the video footage. I show him the government officials talking about it. I show him the whole thing. That was a mass UFO sighting in 1997. Well, you can't take that seriously. I mean that's kind of weird, but the UFOs. So, yeah, it says unidentified flying object. I showed him a few others too that were interesting, and really, what they probably were proof of. I showed him a few others that I think probably were illegal ICBM testing, but they were interesting. And I also I showed him the. Oh God, I'm not waking up. Rendlesham Forest case, which again, absolutely true. I don't know what you know what, they're hopeless. Forget it. I think at this point they could elect a senile president who says "God save the Queen" at the end of a speech to Americans talking about gun control and forgets what countries he's in. And they'd still think he was a good president. So, maybe that generation is just hopeless. I don't want to know what Tom King did to Mr. Terrific. He was a great character under Jeff Johns. Klaatu was the human pet of Gort in the original story, wasn't he? No. Actually, that's not true. He wasn't a pet. What it was in the story was Klaatu was a Christ figure, and he even dies and comes back. But Gort, I guess, had been these robots that had been created, and they were independent. And each planet had a robot placed on them in the Galactic Alliance. And essentially it was, if you become too warlike, if you start to take your war beyond your own planet, Gort will end you. You can fight among yourselves and off yourself if you really want to, but if you decide you're going to take your fighting off planet, Gort's going to wipe you out. And it was their failsafe from intergalactic war happening. Angry god named Gork. No, Gort, that's with a T, but don't worry about it. The UK Commonwealth nations are totally gun bans. That's sad. The criminals are running amok here in these nations. The thing is, in this state where, oh God, 60, 70% of the population is armed, we don't have that problem. I showed the relative of the Project Veritas Pfizer story, and he still tried to fight me on it. Exactly. I think we've reached the point where there's only maybe a handful of people left who really will, take the red pill and come to reality. I really do think that, that 32% of Democrats who still think Biden's doing a good job is a lost cause, that they're not even worth trying. They're gone. They're cult members who are going to drink the Kool-Aid or go down with the ship. And at this point, we've just got to do everything we can to get them as far away from us as possible. Okay. Yeah, and the thing is, I remember goddamn hippie aliens creating Gork to stop us from having fun. No, he was more like a Protestant alien, to be honest with you. But let's see. Repo Man, George, with Emilio Estevez, is one of my favorite films. That is a great damn movie. That had a lot of influence on me growing up. I know that originally it was supposed to be a neutron bomb in the trunk, but I like the alien idea better. 30% brainwashed, 30% awake, 40% asleep, in my estimation. I have no idea. But, the waking up part is growing. It's interesting who are finally saying, wait a minute. I know you and Kat are not Jeff Johns fans as much as you used to, but what are your favorite works from him? His run on JSA. Hands down, his run on Justice Society was exceptional. He did something that I didn't think was really possible. He took an utterly ludicrous concept with characters that most of them were, again, utterly ludicrous, in a world that made absolutely no fucking sense, and made it good. He made it good. He made the characters interesting and relatable. It maintained an internal logic. Those are some of the best comics ever written, in my opinion. And I liked back then that he kept it balanced. He didn't go all woke or, remember when Matt Fraction tried to make the Punisher, politically correct and woke? It's like, shut up, Matt, fuck yourself. But, the Punisher is absolutely not left-leaning in any way. He's as anti-liberal as you can get. No, Jeff Johns didn't do that with the JSA. The older members are all-American World War II style patriots, and it works. You have the Criterion collection. Yeah, I tried to get as much stuff on DVD and Blu-ray as possible. Do not trust digital. Yeah, I've been hearing that South Africa has basically become a third world country once they handed the country over to third world people. A massive surprise. Fuck it. I'll say something thoroughly racist, because why the hell not? One thing that really just blew me the fuck away was, I forget they have one of their politicians, really, really popular, who is advocating for the extermination of the white population, just openly, okay? And this guy is way too popular. One of you probably knows his names, but he's having a rally, right? Tall, skinny black dude, has that Zulu look, and everyone in the audience has signs and stuff that has his name on it. And he has a sign, or he grabs I think he grabbed a flag, and he starts singing and dancing, and they all start waving the signs up and down, and the flagpoles up and down like they're spears, and start doing the back and forth thing that you'd always see in the movies. And it's like, oh my holy fucking God, they're still Zulus. Nothing's changed. And they're chanting about how they're going to kill the white people. Let's see. Ultra Q is great, isn't it, Fiona? A mix of strange, uplifting, but retro. Yeah, it's great. I mean, it was the precursor to Ultraman. And it's kind of like a Japanese X-Files with kaiju. Julius Malema, I'm going to say. Julius Malema. Yeah, that dude. I mean, his at one of his rallies, they were all kind of like dancing around in circles and shit, waving flags and signs like they were spears. And it was like, oh my God, nothing has changed. Okay, my country is gone. The native population has ruined the place. Yeah, well. Welcome to the real Wakanda. Hate to say it, there's the real Wakanda. So, Fiona, I haven't seen you around in a while. Is it just that our shows are too late? Speaking of Kool-Aid, bet most people don't know the politics of Reverend Jim Jones. Yeah, Jim Jones, good friends with Pelosi, Jerry Brown, Willie Brown. Um, hell, I think Kamala knew him. But yeah, Jim Jones was very, very big on being a Democrat. All the Democrats loved him. He went to all their parties. You remember when the SA University, yeah, exactly. Let's see. One of my biggest red pills I learned in college was Mandela was a commie. Yeah, exactly. And everyone who followed him eventually is evidently worse. Yeah. Well, the thing is, there was a test there. There was a test, and the people of South Africa, the black population of South Africa, failed monumentally. What it was after generations of apartheid, the minority white population said, for years, we've kept this going because we've always feared what you would do if we ended it. But that's a long time from ago. The people living today have nothing to do with it. And we're going to trust you. You know what? We're going to trust that that is the past and that we can be one people. And that we will put our faith in you and you will put your faith in us, that we're going to get rid of this. And what did the black population do? Exactly what the white population feared. And the worst part of it is, all the shit going on right now, most of the people they're killing weren't even alive during oh God, I just said it. God, why is it so hard to think? I slept too much. But yeah, just it essentially it proved that what was it? It proved Scott Adams correct. It really did. That the white population apartheid. Thank you. I don't know why my brain fizzled on it. Actually, I do. It's because of all the writing I've been doing. Yeah, most of the people that they are going after right now, most of the people whose lives are being ruined, who are being killed, murdered, raped, weren't even alive during apartheid. Okay, so you can't say, oh well, they deserve it. But anyway, yeah, I mean, that was the test. It says, okay, we're both going to forgive our sins and we're going to move on from here. We're going to trust you. We're going to trust that we can live as the Rainbow Nation, as they called themselves, remember? And we trust that we can be one people. What happened? What happened? Exactly what everyone feared. Not only did they do that, not only did they go on a killing spree, raping spree, thieving spree. I mean, the fact that they're hunting down semi trucks like an elephant and knocking them over and dancing on top of them is, Jesus Christ. And they, in short order, in one generation, have managed to turn South Africa from the most prosperous nation in Africa to another Zimbabwe shithole, maybe worse. No, the population isn't just as poor. They're worse. They're very worse now because, now plumbing doesn't work. The power doesn't work. The roads don't work. Food shipments eventually are going to stop coming because the trucks never reach the towns. They have raiding parties that will wreck the truck and then they'll hoard them. It's any book recommendations on South African apartheid? I think Lauren Southern did an excellent documentary on it. I think it was her. Yeah, that's a great one to do. But it's fucking criminal what's being done there. And again, I repeat, if there was ever an argument that Scott Adams was right. There you go. There you go. Scott Adams was right. And third world people make third world countries. I mean, it's really weird in the U.S. because I've got my audience. Like you, Neostar. Um, you're black, but you're an American through and through. I'm sure if I met you, we could sit right down. There'd be nothing, no divide. We wouldn't even it wouldn't even be perceived. But there is a very large segment of the black population here that does not seem to want to live in peace or harmony with the rest of the country. And it's not just white people. I mean, let's face it, there's a segment of the black population that like beating the crap out of Asians. And they like going after old people, old men. There's a segment of the population that you say, well, you know what? Yeah, we all depend on this store over here, but we're not going to bother with getting petty shoplifters. It leads to wholesale raiding of stores. I don't know. I would have to say most people I know, if you said, well, we're not going to crack down on shoplifting crimes anymore, the reaction wouldn't be, let's rush the mini mart and steal everything. Have you ever seen the 1960s documentary African Adio? Talked about how corrupt and immoral culture was like in Africa? No. And, the thing where I said about Neostar, I'm sure that he and I would get along just as Americans. It wouldn't matter. I don't understand the divide. What is it? Because I'm not plugged in enough. I don't know what the hell's going on. But clearly, there is a segment of the black population that doesn't want to live in civilization, it appears. Normal people don't decide, hey, let's go on a raiding spree. Normal people don't say, well, we don't have as many cops now. Let's go rape some people. Let's go attack people for fun. That's not normal behavior. And I don't get it. I mean, there's that video in New York, wasn't it, where this group of black young men start beating the crap out of an old white guy in a trench coat, and everyone in the, I think it was a McDonald's, take out their phones and start filming it, and they'll laugh, and, oh, look what they're doing to him, man, that dude, look at him. And the moment he pulls out a gun, everyone starts screaming like he's the bad guy. Yeah, the black community has been in crisis for a long time now. Yeah, it has. I know that probably the root of it just is fathers, but does South Africa lack fathers? Is I don't know. Maybe there's no comparison. But yeah, I find it thoroughly baffling because I had no idea that a sizable chunk of my audience is black. Of course, I think this avatar here is what I think of when I think of my audience. I think of, fun cartoon characters. Well, okay, this cartoon character here is black, but that doesn't really mean anything. Here we go. Aloes. Is that Blood Rain? I don't know. Samurai Jack here. I think that's one of the great things about doing this is I've met so many people, and I have no idea who you are. Your little avatars on the screen, and none of that other shit matters. And I don't know. I feel like there was a time. I know there was a time in parts of the U.S. at least where it was like that in normal life, where it just didn't matter. And why the black community is the way it is, I'm not informed enough to speak on it knowledgeably, because like I said, so many of you guys are black. We'd all be perfect friends in public. There'd be no issue whatsoever. I'm sure we'd all get along and it wouldn't be an issue. I think I'd probably be the kind of people that'd say, hey, let's do a movie night. But at the same time, there's crime sprees going on, and well, everyone's of a certain pallor. Where's the divide? What the hell is going on? On the internet, nobody knows you actually are an anthropomorphic lowercase h. I don't know. You black listeners, help me out here. What the fuck's going on? I mean, even in the 90s, I will say, even in the 90s, when we got to that point where racism almost didn't exist, there was always that fragment of the black population that was just eternally hostile and just seemed to be. Actually, the thing is it's not black versus white. It's almost like black versus everybody. Because, well, it kind of was. But I don't know. It was never such an issue that it caused problems in day-to-day life. But by comparison, I told you the story about how we were at the convention in was it San Jose, and we're taking the public trans, and all these white people are coming back from work, their day jobs, and they're all just sitting on the trolley, and one black dude gets on, starts pushing people out of his way. He uses his size to his advantage, takes an entire seat to himself, and then starts to, I'm going to practice my rhymes. And he starts rapping about how he's going to rape the woman next to him. Now he's going to shoot the old man in front of him. It's like, what the fuck is this? And nobody would say anything. I was laughing my ass off, actually, because it was so absurd. But anyway, Ishii, the true black community was duped into social communist leadership that prey on race and class. LBJ once I get those ends voting Democrat 200 years. But Bjorn, why did they buy into it? I mean, other populations didn't. I mean, that same tactic didn't work as well with other immigrant communities or other minority communities. That just did not work. That the idea of being dependent on the government was essentially demeaning or something you absolutely didn't want to talk about. And hell, in white culture, we know there are plenty of welfare queens, but nobody likes them. And, they're thought very poorly of. Okay. In defense, well, what defense for what? I like your avatar. I kept my avatar because I was surprised how many people still remember Aquabats. I don't even know what that is. Aquabats. Oh, the band. Okay, I do know who the Aquabats are. Never mind. Your avatar's. Oh, okay. Now I get it. That's great. I like that. I'm going to share this with everyone. I heard of the Aquabats quite a bit when I was younger. Never saw them. Had no idea what they were. But now I'm kind of thinking maybe I should have. Apparently, this is the Aquabats. What's their music like? Thomas Sell has a well-reasoned explanation of what's been going on with black culture. Yeah. You're not wrong, Draco. Booker and W.E.B. May have had good points in their arguments, but ultimately they had the strongest one. It's like you said, their thinking was more than one step ahead. Maybe due to demoralization of having leadership getting assassinated, they were down for anything. Yeah. It's because blacks in America have no culture. I'm African from Eritrea, so I have a very strong culture. My father was hardworking man. I was a hardworking man with no nonsense. Culture and father. Yeah, okay. And I suppose if your cultural myth is roots, that's not a good recipe, is it? Drugs, the drug war, and welfare, maybe. I don't know. It again, from an outside position, it doesn't make sense, especially after living through the '90s and the early aughts. It's baffling to me. And I can't say I do know when the change happened. I know exactly when the change happened. And that was when first we elected Obama, and that was like racism was over. That was like okay, we've finally done it. See, they said this would never happen. Racism's over. Most Americans will vote for a black president. You can never again say we're a nation full of races. Clearly, the majority will vote for a black person if they're the right person to run the country. And for a while and for a time, I would say the height of race didn't matter was then. And then the race hustlers like, oh God, what's the douchebag from the 60s with the crazy hair? Not Don King, the commie. I don't remember. But, Jesse Jackson and all the others, all the race hustlers came out and started saying, oh, well, don't think this means anything. Don't think this is, they're just as racist as they have always been. Al Sharpton, thank you. And the one with the Don King hair, exactly. And so the old race hustlers started pushing even harder. And that didn't really seem to take hold. It didn't really seem to work. And then the black man that we all elected to unite us handled Ferguson. And he went on television and made it perfectly clear to white America and Asian America and Mexico, everyone else, he made it clear he wasn't our president. He was black America's president, and that it was our fault. The Irish bought into siding with the Dems since the Civil War. Yeah, the Teamster side, yeah. But keep in mind, the Republicans and the conservative side is also because of the Catholics. So you can't say that's really a one group voting bloc. That's more income. Black community dependency on government created a non-selfish net. In the 1950s, blacks were mostly 80% family unit with mom and dad in their homes, with kids turning home with kids turned to the 70s, 80% had no father figure. Yeah. In the end, I think the source of the black community's biggest issue is the government. States put down Jim Crow laws that fed them, then fed sticks that was to beat them rather than to using our own strength. Yeah, I think really Malcolm X nailed it when he said, we've got to do it ourselves. That he said, what did he said something to the effect of, really, it doesn't really matter what the hell the white man's doing. That's the white man's problem. We've got to stop depending on them. We've got to stop looking upon them. We've got to take care of our own homes and set our own homes in order. It's like, and I think that really was the speech that got him shot. I think that there was a sizable part of the government, especially Democrats and possibly the CIA, who thought, oh, we can't have that. We definitely cannot have that. We cannot have a black community that doesn't need us. And I think that is what got Malcolm X shot. Because, yeah, the Democrats are thoroughly terrified of what will happen if they don't have a black vote or they don't have the black population to back them up. And, at the same time, they also have that stupid fantasy that come the revolution, that black people are going to be their foot soldiers. I've heard that myth so many fucking times. So many communists that I met in college, all, these, white upper class rich kids or Jewish rich kids who came from very privileged homes. When they talked about the revolution, they were the leaders, and then the people over in Oaktown, Oakland, were going to be their foot soldiers and do the fighting for them. And I was like, what crack are you on? The people in Oakland don't give a flying fuck what you think. They'd eat you alive. Gynocentrism is pretty rampant in Black community. When you combine that with Black women outnumbering 3-1, oh shit, really? Well then, you know what? Say no more, Neostar. You've explained it. It's that simple. It is that simple. No. If it's a matriarchy, that explains everything you're seeing. One of the biggest problems with matriarchies, and the reason they always fail, and I do say always, is because they perpetually keep their men children. Seriously. And they keep their daughters children as long as possible too. But men in a matriarchy are perpetually kept as children or workhorses. And they don't want them to mature past that point. And that's not a comment on Black communities. That's a comment on matriarchies in general. Is they fail because men have no role other than being a workhorse or a mouth and a child and a dependent for mommy to dote over. Operation Get Behind Darkies wasn't satire in the South Park movie. No, it was not. No, not in the least. Undead. Quinn says, socialism destroyed Black community. Well, as the numbers are showing, there's a greater and greater divide within the United States between the sexes. And the fact is, the vast majority amount of men don't want socialism or communism. They want self-determination. And a ridiculous number of female voters want socialism and government handouts. I'm not saying anybody in this chat's like that. I'm not saying that in the women listening here, but that's the hard reality of it. So yeah, if that's the case, if Black America is a matriarchy and they outnumber men 3-1 and women prefer socialism, there you go. Yeah, Cornell West was another one that was like, oh, don't think Obama is the end of racism. America's just as racist before. We still got to fight the white man. Complacency and codependence were the ultimate undoing of the Black community. They also wanted governments that screwed them over to also be their saviors. That's always been a bad plan. Yeah, it's like the thing with Bill Gates and all those rich people saying they're going to fix the environment. It's like, okay, so the people who wrecked the environment are going to fix it. Right. Okay, yeah, go fuck yourself. Why the hell would I trust anyone who fucked up the environment to fix it? Keyword was because divorce didn't have to happen. Yeah, divorce was fucked up too. Ishi, Jews were the biggest slave owners in the U.S. Judah B. Benjamin, CSA, is never mentioned in history books. Well, again, you guys have said maybe I should stop talking about these about such historical facts because you think it might be one of the reasons I keep getting shadow banned. But the Kingpin in a Daredevil was based on a real man, except he was a Jewish dude, and he really was that ruthless in New York. The biggest slumlord of New York was a Jewish dude. So there's a lot of that where revisionist history, or who owns the publishing company gets to decide what parts of the history you tell. I mean, there are a lot of cases like that. If you look at the movie Dr. Strangelove, Peter Sellers' character, Strangelove, the real Dr. Strangelove wasn't a German. He was a Hungarian Jew. The real man that guy was based on was Edward Teller. There you go. And for a movie, they changed him into a German. You see what I mean? Because, of course, Hollywood would. Ever heard of the feminist communists? The government party in Japan called it that. technically, communism is illegal in Japan, from what I understand. And the thing is I've noticed with the Japanese in the 60s, they definitely 60s and 70s, they definitely flirted with communism. But the thing is, they made a weird mistake. What they think communism isn't. It's communalism. And when you hear the Japanese talk about what they think communism is, no, it's communalism. And what they're likening it to is the village lifestyle that the Japanese were living before they became a modern nation. To be fair, it wasn't you guys, it was ICK specifically. Blame me, everyone else. Ironcast Knight? Huh? Don't know what you're talking about. Keep talking about historical facts, Ishiro. They enlighten anybody who learns history, aficionados. There are times that facts that they didn't know initially. Weren't the Koreans the long-standing practices? Yeah, well, the fact of the matter is, when it comes to slavery, no one can beat Africa because it's still going on there. It's alive and well. They just don't talk about it. And it also happens in the Middle East. They just don't talk about it. There are way more black women than men, damn near 60 to fuck. And how is it that black women collect husbands? I'm going to go into the deep end. Government pushed gangster culture to destroy culture. It's entirely possible. It's entirely possible. But, there is another way to look at that. They could have pushed gangster culture to destroy Black America. I mean, the government's done loonier things and more fucked up things. It's not the first time they've done weird ass shit. Like right now, all this UFO shit. Yeah, this is coming from a grave. Keep in mind, all this UFO, this shit they're talking about, it's bullshit. As for me, I love the chosen people. Okay, you really want me to get real? You want me to get real and say something super, super offensive? I've always had a question about that, all right? I've always had a question about being God's chosen people. How is that any different than being called the master race? Because Hitler basically said that Germans were descended from gods and that they were the master race, the superior people that the gods favored. Is there any difference? Seriously. I mean, at least the Japanese didn't make any bones about it. They just decided they were superior because they were Japanese. No, we're just Japanese. We're better than you. Going through here. Ironcast Knight, we're not enabling your martyr fetish, bro. We're all Spartacus here. You're Spartacus now. Dude, you're not saying that because you're like, what, a third Jewish or something? Aren't you? Or 30%? I don't remember what you said. Because I got comments on that too. I actually think it's really unfair for a culture and a religion to claim a genetic code. I think that, this is your genes. You have to be this. You're automatically this. I was like, well, no, you genetically have these genes, but culturally and religiously speaking doesn't mean you do. I always thought that was annoying. I mean, I guess the black community gets that too. Okay, so you have black skin. You're genetically black. That doesn't necessarily mean you are part of black culture and gangster rap and all that shit, or that you identify with all that crap, that woke shit. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're the Japanese are the children of the sun. I just didn't want to get into that. thought that was a little too off the beaten trail. Plus, it's just funnier to say that, oh, no, there's no reason. We just are. Going through here. Okay, Ironcast says quarter. I think it's perfectly fine to criticize a bunch. I also think a lot of them with a lot of power don't like it. No, absolutely. Absolutely true. But yeah, I would say that I think it's really this concept of genetics and culture being, or even religion being one and the same, is not only harmful, it's dangerous because it kind of denies the person of any right to identity or self-identity. Remember your blood. Well, maybe I don't really care for that group, or maybe I don't really like your special club, or it just, I don't know. Ethnicity is one thing, culture is another. I mean, I'm half Irish, half Japanese, but culturally, I think I'm an American. I mean, granted, I wasn't brought up in a Japanese household, so that was kind of part of it, but I don't know. The tribal drumming. Exactly, that's it. Just because you have certain genes doesn't mean you have to belong to a fucking tribe. I'm sick of that. It also robs a person of their autonomy and individuality. Yeah, and the statistics. Well, sociologists will always start talking about statistically this many people are this and this many people are this, and that's why this means they're all going to think this. It's like, that's kind of fucked up. People get real upset when I put other American. Dude, I'm going to start doing that on ethnicity. Seriously, try standing out in the black community. You will get nailed down. Oh, I know, dude. What did I tell you guys about black goths or black D&D players? They got the most shit and beat up the most by their community. Yeah, exactly. Depeche Mode was right, Humble Marty. People are people. There's more than one way to cull a population. If the government encourages self-destruction, the community will do the job for them. The blood and soil argument. But I don't know. Okay, I'm going to go back to that chosen people master race thing. Honestly, if you want to think your culture or your nation is the best, there's a healthy thing about that. There's a healthy notion of, if you really love something, it's like, yeah, it's the best. My family's the best. Our house is the best. We rock. Our team rocks. Fine. Actually, I think this country could use some of that. Make America great again. We're Americans, damn it. And then there's a difference between that and, well, God chose us, so we can break rules and treat you like shit, or we're this master race, so we're just going to throw you into ovens. Hell yeah, rivalry and competition is good, but this idea that you're superior, thus it's okay for you to do bad things to others that aren't in your tribe, has got to go. My nation, right or wrong, right, be it to right, keep right, wrong, made to be made right. Damn straight, Cook. There's a religious bent to the chosen people thing that leans more on being the chosen people of a vengeful and demanding God is not a good thing. Yeah, well, I know that there was quite a few religious wars within Judaism where the fanatics basically had said, you're blending with the other culture, that's bad. That's why God won't talk to us anymore, so we're going to kill you. And I do know that there's been a long tradition of the community leaders or the rabbis purposely doing various things to ghettoize their own people so that they don't talk to their neighbors or blend with the community. And that's just like a recipe for a disaster. American blows dust off. Hope you know a lot of trailers. Married with Children joke. Getting nailed down is similar to the Japanese people who want to stand out instead of go along with their cultural conformity. Yeah, that's kind of an interesting thing about Japan, though, because there is a reward at the end for standing out. There is a. It's very interesting, and this I figured this out while studying the history of anime for this book again, Boobs of Steel, that I realized there was a pattern in their culture, which is, the nail that stands up gets hammered down. True. Okay. But what happens is in Japan, if you absolutely refuse to conform and go your own way and succeed, suddenly you're a hero. Suddenly everyone else will start doing it because you've made it okay. And the best example of that is Go Nagai. I shit you not. He was a pariah. There were riots against him. There was demands to ship him out of the country. People wanted him dead. But he said, fuck it, I'm going to do this shit anyway. And he got successful doing the manga he did and the anime he did. And because he did it, suddenly everyone else said, well, it's okay now. See, he succeeded. Enough of this like this that it's okay for the rest of us to do it too. And then suddenly that's when all this Go Nagai inspired manga started happening. So that's kind of the thing that's the weird catch-22 with Japan is, you don't stand out until you do. And if you do, you better fucking succeed. Oh, yeah, the blood and soil argument is the lifeblood of China, our land. Yeah, China is our land, as they call it. The way everyone else hopped on the German Stolzmannets, don't do language with me, dude, thing was hilarious. We're the finest nation with much to be proud of. Hey, us too. Cool. Awesome. 32 people watching, and I'm just ranting about things. That's interesting. Hey, everybody. I've written a book called Boobs of Steel. It's about the fact that the culture war hates boobs, that the woke people hate boobs, and that them getting rid of all the busty, beautiful characters in our media isn't simply that it offends them. It actually is all part of trying to get rid of the concept of gender. I shit you not. They want... It all comes back to this woke trans shit, and it's been going on since at least the 50s. I make a very compelling argument in Boobs of Steel, Decoding the Amazon, Book 1, link in the description. Now back to the show. And hit the like. The lunch break is over. Okay. Yeah, Go Nagai is the man. You've been reading the Bible and the Old Testament, and it's just a record of war crimes. I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't get. Yeah, again, this is coming from the atheist, but my stance. The thing is that really, you read the New Testament for philosophy and morals and ethics, and you read the Old Testament for context. And I think I'm not really the biggest fan of Old Testament Christianity because it's a hell of a lot less forgiving, and there's not much redemption in it. And I think the greatest thing about New Testament Christianity is it really pushes hard the concept that no one is beyond redemption, that everyone is capable of redeeming themselves. And in practice, I'd say that's not entirely true. I think that maybe if you've raped 20 children, maybe you should just go through a meat grinder. But in theory, I mean, in a concept of a court of law, or if you're going to base a society on something, that's not a bad thing to have. And a route to redemption. And the idea that all life is sacred, that is not a universal truth. In fact, before Christianity, the idea that all life was sacred and all were equal in the eyes of God was not a normal thing. And coming to this idea that there was a higher authority that even kings would be judged by, no matter how divine their right was to lead. Even they would be judged as the same way as the lowliest of street urchins. That is, I would say, a philosophical and ethical innovation that pretty much saved the West for so long. I mean, it was just, we need to keep that. Okay, we need to keep that because our lives depend on it, seriously. That there's a route to redemption, people can be redeemed, life is sacred, that family's important. Now, granted, there's tons of religions that say family's important. That isn't unique to Christianity. But yeah, the bit about life matters, that life isn't just to be thrown away. And it's very clear that communism and the current Democratic Party doesn't believe life is sacred at all. And again, the idea that everyone, nobody special, everyone gets judged. Now, again, if you want me to get into how an atheist can feel this way, I can, but I think you've all heard the story. Yeah, Ishiro wrote some sci-fi, but Boobs of Steel is his magnum opus. It's going to be the decline and fall of the Roman Empire with boobs. Kinda. Yeah, I didn't expect it to be that, but kinda. It is a very enlightening look on how communism, feminism, and the whole transgender thing has been going on a lot longer than we all thought, and they waged their war in media specifically attacking the concept of what a woman is, specifically. And in a way, no one's going to believe me, but I kind of see it like that book, The Hollywood Party, that was basically a tell-all of how Hollywood became communist and how it is communist, because it's very similar. A quick question. How do you want Ironcast Knight on for a review? He's oh, shit, okay. Well, okay, next Wednesday we're supposed to do a show with Wolf about Star Wars. How about the Wednesday after that? Yeah, keep reminding me. Let's make that happen. Going here. Every sperm is sacred. No, not the sperm, but the result of the sperm and the egg is. God forgive us. If God forgives, we run the wood chippers. You read the old fortakes of blood, revenge, and gore. Well, look, the Old Testament's more fun to read, and as a writer, with maybe the exception of Numbers and Leviticus, a lot of that is really, really wonderfully written poetry. I mean, it really is. As a writer, you should just read it anyway, just for the way that those Greeks knew how to write. And the New Testament, not as great, but story-wise, I mean, it's really more thoughtful and introspective, and there are more parables. But there are some great lines in there too. But you want some real great imagery and poetry? Revelation, holy crap! Revelation is just one epic collection of imagery and metaphors. Like, this is great. Again, that's another one. If you're a writer, you should just read it to see how it's written and how things are described. It's up there with, in my opinion, it's just like you need to read Shakespeare, or at least view it. Actually, don't read Shakespeare. Watch it. I don't think you really should read Shakespeare. You should watch it. Ishi, today, world people are mixed generation, and generations there are no choosing people today in the promised land. I wish I remembered more of my mostly complete Christian theology major right now, but I'm at work and still trying hard to type. Well, we'll give you another time to come on. It's been a while, and I should probably do another show of why the atheist is very much pro New Testament Christianity. But Yeah, I think the real wake up call for me was, God, go into Alex Jones territory now, was when Tuweldi pointed out that the reason I understand religion is because I had my own religious experiences with gray aliens. And he's not wrong. Yeah, what do you say about that? I don't know. But yeah, he's not wrong. My experiences with the Greys was, in every regard, it had all the earmarks of a religious experience. I just think it all happened in my head. Yeah, Sam. Well, I don't know about Sam Harris. I don't know. Yeah, he has a cult fanatic logic, but he kind of showed his true colors when the Jewish Sam Harris decided to tell everyone that Judaism should get special exceptions when it comes to criticism. That's when I said, Sam, you're full of shit. You were perfectly fine hammering on Islam and Christianity and Buddhism and all the others. But, Judaism gets a special exception and a special pass. Now go fuck yourself. Old Testament is really a male sex fantasy. Abraham, Moses, King David, Solomon, very warrior stud. You're not wrong. You're absolutely not wrong. I wish I had an AI assistant that thinks and talks like Alex Jones. That would be great. How about a GPS like that, where your car starts talking to you about where you need to go? Okay. To know who rules over you, simply look whom you can't criticize. Well, I do it anyway, I guess. Well, I always kind of wondered, that one guy from BlackRock flat out said that that the banks and the hedge funds rule the world. So does that make him an anti-Semite? Because when anyone else says that, they're called an anti-Semite. And I saw on James O'Keefe Media, that guy from BlackRock didn't know he was being recorded. Flat out said that the truth was companies like BlackRock and the banks run the world. And I repeat, whenever you say that, you're called an anti-Semite. So I don't know. Maybe something should happen to that guy. The burning wheels were too scary for them, and the gay artist just simply simped for the hot guys with hot guys with wings look. How about appearing as little gray dudes, alien workshopping a new look? Okay, just for point of reference, has anyone here not heard the gray alien stories from me? Because I have no issue talking about them. And they really are interesting. But it was you guys that pointed out it had all the earmarks of a religious experience. Okay, well, yeah, this guy's an atheist. Well, let's have him see the aliens. Oh, you haven't? Okay, I'll another time you're on. I've been on for almost 2 hours. I'm going to call it a night, call it a day in a minute. But Tim, next time you're on, I'll give the source. I'll do an episode. It'll be a full episode. Autistic question: since Arabic is a Semitic language, does being anti-Semitic cover both Hebrew and Arabic culture? It should, just like the word Levantine should cover Arabic culture as well, and everything in that region. But one group of people kind of claim those words for their own. And the term anti-Semitic was specifically created to shut people up. I do know that. Because because racist wasn't effective enough, and it wasn't specific enough. They wanted one that just applied to them and them only. Just like, and it's actually the what was it? FAIR, the Muslim group, came up with anti-Islamic for the same reason. It was the same strategy as why they came up with the word after 9/11 was for the same purposes. I kind of want to play around with AI voices. I want to hear Michael Jackson sing the Darkwing Duck theme. That'd be great. I should fire up 11 Labs, the AI voice simulator, and get Tim to do another rant. All right, everyone. This has been a good show. One more time, pre-order Boobs of Steel. It's going to be available July 10th in digital, and then I'm going to try and get the print version up as soon as I possibly can. And if you could, please promote it, get the word out. It's been very hard. We've tried our damnedest to get Bounding Into Comics to notice. They don't care. Link is in the description. Take care.